Okay, so hello everyone. This is Musique, and today I'm going to be doing another two-parter, and this one obviously involves a legend. And I feel like when a legend has a simmering success or consecutive simmering success, it's actually very interesting because out of everyone, they have the best chance of coming out of the simmering success era or eras, and they recover. While most people who have a simmering success, their career usually flatlines. And it makes sense because they're not legends, they don't have the longevity or the fan base like that. So, with this series, we're going to see how Madonna entered a slump, or at least for that time, or her stature, with this album and the next one I'm going to cover, and how she got out of it. Erotica is always a very interesting album because it was seen as a flop, though it didn't flop. But for her numbers, it definitely was a disappointment, and this is when the backlash against her got was at its worst, and it did cause her to suffer some consequences that she had to work many years to get out of. And in general, the music's very interesting. It's at a period where she was a veteran, she wasn't seen as the new hot thing anymore, and it was during that transition where 80s music was ending and what would be known as the 90s music was starting to become. And this album came out in the early to mid 90s, so usually with each decade, the first 2 years or so is still the leftover from the prior decade, but this came out when that period was over and you had to either adapt or fall off. So now I'm going to focus on the development of the album. So after starting a multimedia entertainment company, I'm going to get more into detail about this in a few minutes. Madonna wanted to work on her fifth studio album and a coffee table book called Sex Book at the same time, hoping for both of them to be released on the same day. And she was also working on a film that's an erotic thriller called Body of Evidence. So she was clearly in a certain mood, pathology, and vibe during this time. She linked up with Chef Pettibone to work on the album, as they have already worked together with great success on the Immaculate collection, and they recorded the first set of songs, essentially the four US singles and Thief of Hearts, but the production was too glossy, sheen, and pristine, and she wanted the album to be dark, edgy, and cold. There are so many more details that I could mention for the production of the album, like creating an alter ego named Dita based on a German silent film actress, but I don't want to derail and drag things. What I will say is that the album started being developed / recorded around late 1991. It took about 6 months to complete, where it was mainly done in New York or Miami. So the process for the album was pretty much right after the lyrics were written, the vocals were recorded and often done in a single take to grasp the rawness that she was going for with the album. The album talked about sex, power, submission, loss, AIDS, disillusionment, and emotional detachedness, where many of her close friends died of AIDS, and she was angry at how the people in power were handling the whole ordeal. The goal was to have an underground New York vibe where she spent so much time before fame, incorporating house, trip hop, and new jack swing elements in the album.
Because love, well, it's meant to be an ironic sort of a title, but I think that ultimately love is very erotic, so I thought it was an appropriate title, since most of the songs on the album are love songs. Curtis Mayfield. I mean, the Superfly, you know that music from that movie Superfly, the kind of very jazzy, black 70s sound, Sly and the Family Stones. That's all I can think of right now. I mean, it wasn't really conscious, it just came out that way. Everything I do is influenced by my childhood.
We've been talking about image a lot, and sometimes the music is overlooked, especially by the press. And I listened to the album today, and the album has a lot of good music on it. So what for you is the primary importance? Is it music?
The most important thing is that I say the things I want to say in my music or whatever expression that may be, whether that's writing a book or writing songs or or acting or whatever. The most important thing is that I feel fulfilled as an artist, and what the world gets out of it and what they choose to see, I can't control it or predict it. And of course I always hope that they will see that and get past, you know, what they consider the scandal or the imaging or but that's something the media's created.
I know.
Is this guy amazing? Like,
Yes, I am a tramp. And I'm proud of it.
I have absolutely no control over the media. I only have control over what I do as an artist, and if I say what I want to say, then I have fulfilled myself. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. How therapeutic is writing a song? Because
Extremely.
because there's a song on the album that's written about people that you know that have died of AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way that the writing process for you is also a way of letting out emotions.
Yes, and that's not to say even that everything I write is exactly true and what happened to me. I think that, you know, all kinds of artistic expression can be a cathartic experience for you emotionally. Whether you go to a canvas and take a brush and just like start painting, you know, smears of red and blue, or you write a poem, or you write a song, piece of music, whatever. It's absolutely therapeutic. Yeah.
When you work on a song, what's the actual process?
It's
What is
different
it?
every time. It's really different every time. Sometimes I have an idea musically in my head. I don't play an instrument, so I work with several different songwriters, and I will go to one of them and say, I hear this, play this on the piano or whatever, and record it. Sometimes people present me with music, and it inspires me to write words to it.
The sound is quite raw on the album at
Yeah.
times as well. How do you get that sound? I mean, how?
By not producing it too much. I mean, actually, when we went in and we wrote the songs, Shep Pettibone and Andre Betts, the two different guys that I wrote with on this album, we did them all on 8-track. We made 8-track demos, and we basically kept them very true to what our original inspiration was when we were writing the songs. Instead of taking those tracks and then going into a 24-track and saying, okay, we have to do everything over, only better, we said, this is it, this is good enough. I mean, we did a few minor overdubs, but other than that, pretty much what you hear on the album is what the original demo form of each song was. That's probably why it has that raw feeling to it.
Erotica, which I was listening to this morning on my little Walkman and enjoying very much, it's got much more of a kind of a dancey R&B sound to it, quite a heavy sound to it.
Yeah.
Is it intended for the clubs? Is that a step that you're trying to make?
No, that's the kind of music I've been listening to, influenced by, and I mean, it probably has a sort of a more gritty quality and more club quality, but it's because that's what I like right now. Yeah.
There are a lot of, I mean, it's a very sexy album.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Not all of it, but I mean, most of it. But some songs more than others, and there are a lot of kind of anatomical references. Now, when you're writing that kind of stuff, are you writing that for yourself, or are you writing that with some kind of impression that you want to make?
I like, when I write music, I like to write them like, in my mind there's a little movie playing, and I always envision scenarios and characters, and of course it's not always something that I've experienced, but I always say it in the first person, so it seems like it's a personal thing. And they're just usually ideas that amuse me. I mean, sometimes they're things that I think are erotic. Sometimes they're things that I think would be interesting to write a song about, because no one's ever written a song about it. You know, I mean, I'm influenced by many things, and my inspirations come from lots of different places, and sometimes I know I'm purposely being funny or ironic, you know, and sometimes I just like the way words sound. I mean,
Do you worry that people might not get the irony, but they might not pick up on the humour?
not really. I mean, everyone's not gonna, you have to be intelligent to get the humor. You have to be sophisticated, and I know everybody isn't, so some people will get it and some people won't.
Let me talk to you about one song in particular which I enjoy, which is Where Life Begins.
Oh, good.
And it's a top song, and the lyrics on it, this particular bit. Now, what could be better?
So, on to the label stuff in development. So, Madonna had a lot of power with her label Sire, which was also owned by Warner Records. So, she had a lot of power with Warner Records, essentially. As she had the huge, Prayer studio album, and an even huger, the Immaculate Collection album, or compilation album that was released in 1990, I believe. So, being the label's biggest commercial and critical success, they gave her a lot of leeway and control, which kind of leads into what I'm about to get into with this. So we're going to pin back the thing that we're going to take off the pin for the thing that I said I was going to pin a few minutes ago. So, Madonna ended up teaming up with Warner Inc. to form a multimedia entertainment company called Maverick, with it being official on April 21st, 1992. This included a record company, so she'll also be releasing her own music through this record company, publishing, a production company, television broadcasting, book publishing, where she will publish her book through this, and merchandise. The deal gave her a $60 million advance and 20% music royalties, being one of the best deals at the time, and a lot of the best deals of the music industry was being handed out and made at around this time, so she was just a part of that. Okay, so regarding her sex book, I'm going to talk about it mainly here because I don't want to talk about it elsewhere because this video is mainly about the album. So, it was always intended by Madonna to release the album and the sex book at the same time, which did worry Warner as they felt like it would cause too much backlash, where people would not want to buy the album. Some retailers allegedly refused to stock Erotica or threatened to not stock it due to the book, so there was some worry going on there too. The book included new people, many being celebrities like Vanilla Ice and Naomi Campbell, performing/stimulating sex acts, homosexual acts, and BDSM content, where some execs also thought that she was doing something revolutionary too, but they were mainly in the minority. Time Warner, which is also the parent company of Warner Bros., so this is the higher ups, was also getting a lot of complaints about Madonna, as the US was in a more conservative time and the religious groups were still on her butt from the a prayer days. On to the actual rollout of the album. So, Erotica was released as the lead single of the album on September 29, 1992 in most markets, but the song was leaked ahead of time in the United States. It was also supposed to be released on September 30th there, but they ended up holding it back in the US so it could be released on October 13th, 1992. It's a pop song with somewhat hip-hop and New Jack Swing elements. The song was quote-unquote sung in spoken words through her alter ego, Lita, and pretty much the song is about BDSM. There's really no way around it. The song debuted at a very high spot of number 13 on the Hot 100 charts on October 17th, 1992. Tying Mariah Carey's I'll Be There for the highest debut on the chart at that time, and would peak at number 3 during the following week, i.e. October 24th, 1992. Despite that, the song would drop and lose a lot of points very quickly as the backlash for the song grew. It was only played in music's TV stations a few times outside of the box, which is the adult channel, and radio moved on from it. But the VHS of the video sold quickly. Ironically, the song received positive reception from the critics, but the music video was trashed at the time. The song was a top 5 hit in most of the countries it charted on, but the longevity in many of those countries were not the best either. On to the album released. So, the album Erotica was released on October 29th, 1992. So 3 weeks after the release of the single with the same name, and it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 200 charts, with sales of 167,000 in the first week, and it was her first album since her debut a decade prior to not top the charts, and it would drop to number 4 in the next week. A lot of the blame, at least in the publications that I could find at the time, was put on the lead single not having longevity, With the single and the album dropping down the charts, it was not a good sign and everyone noticed the decline in sales. Despite that, and the controversy going on regarding her sixth book and Body of Evidence around the corner, the album would be certified 2 times platinum in the States, where it would gain about 4 million additional sales, selling approximately 6 million copies worldwide, which was a huge decline, and she was deemed a flop, though many people couldn't get those numbers. When it came to the reviews, and I'm specifically focusing on the reviews at release, they're actually relatively favorable, though some are a bit more mixed, claiming it was a good concept album and it was very interesting, while some found it to be a bit too cold and weak compared to her past albums. So I didn't want to discuss her sixth book much due to 1, a lot of the content would be banned on YouTube, and 2, it's not related to the album. But the coffee table book Sex was released 2 days later after the album, so it was released on October 21st, 1992. And the book attracted extensive media attention and media backlash, but Madonna remained unapologetic for it, and there were a lot of negative reviews that came from fans and critics in the general public, and a lot of that negativity went to the album, where a lot of people just thought she went way too far. So obviously things would somewhat change in the decades to come. But when it came to its commercial performance, it was a huge hit, and it was obviously a bestseller, so she accomplished what she wanted from it.
The following year, Madonna upped the ante in the celebrity sweepstakes, releasing not just a new album, but a book filled with erotic pictures of Madonna. It had the desired effect. It got attention.
One of the wildest parties to hit New York in a while wrapped just a few hours ago. The guest of honor was Madonna, who's plugging her new album and her new book called Sex. And our entertainment reporter, Jill Rappaport, has the story.
Madonna Mania hit Manhattan last night, and her fans had no trouble expressing themselves. What do you think about this Madonna book, huh?
I don't have to think. That's the best thing about me. I don't have to think.
This was the coming out party, not only celebrating her much-hyped, much-revealing sex book hitting the stores October 21st, but also the release of her new Erotica video and album.
Do you think that someone can go too far expressing themselves? There's a lot more things in this world to worry about than, whether Madonna's going too far or not. I mean, I think it's wonderful. She pushes the boundaries. She always crosses the line. Then the line gets farther. She crosses it again.
I know you want me. What do you think? You think she's gone too far this time?
I don't think it's possible for her to go too far.
Now, I understand you're in the book, right?
Yes, you've seen it.
So, did you bear all, Naomi?
You'll see if you buy it.
This book is creating an awful lot of controversy.
Thank goodness there's controversy.
Now, 800 of Madonna's closest friends were invited to this event, which inside is being called a voyeuristic delight. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, no cameras were allowed inside. However, knowing Madonna, we probably couldn't show you any of it on TV. Anyway,
there's a lot of scantily clad people in leather with various sexual objects doing obscene things to each other.
You never cease to amaze us. What's next in the shock department?
More genius.
If you publish naked pictures of yourself, you might expect someone to ask you, what would your parents think? That's what NBC's Bryant Gumbel asked Madonna in 1993.
What'd Dad think of Sex?
Of the book?
Yeah.
He hasn't seen it.
He has to have heard about it.
Of course he's heard about it, but it's not the kind of book my father would read. You know? It's not a book for everybody.
Do you think he'd like the book if he saw it?
I don't think he would understand it, no. But in order to like or dislike something, I believe you truly have to understand something.
We'll have more of Brian's interview with Madonna on her fame, her family, and her future when time is...
What was my goal in making the book?
It was the so-called publishing event of the century, the drop of Madonna's racy coffee table book, Sex. And only E.T. has the inside story behind the book that left people shook.
I think the reaction is, pretty much what I expected. In American society, we read a lot of sexual fantasies, but they're always from the male point of view. And I don't think there's a lot of women that are coming out and, sort of giving the female point of view.
The aluminum book cover encased 128 pages of spiral-bound controversy.
You mean you didn't read the text?
And in between the very suggestive photos, Madonna provided nuggets of wisdom such as, a lot of people are afraid to say what they want. That's why they don't get what they want.
Unlike European cultures, it's, sex is made into a dirty thing, a taboo subject, and so of course people are even more interested in knowing about it and reading about it, and that's really, a point I made with the book to a certain extent. I believe that my book was about empowering women and celebrating women's sexuality and telling women to be proud of their bodies and their sexuality, so I believe that it was a very positive thing.
In the end, Madonna's out-of-the-box marketing strategy paid off big time. Sex sold over 150,000 copies on the day of its release, and sales of the book topped over 500,000 by the following week.
I expected that a lot of people would be shocked and everyone would say, oh, it's trash, but of course everyone went out and bought it, so I think that's pretty much a reflection on our society, isn't it? No risk, no glory.
Deeper and Deeper was the second single for the album, and it was released on November 17, 1992, though it was released in the US on December 8, 1992. It is a house dance pop disco song about... That's the thing, many people interpret the song in many different ways, but overall the most simplistic way to interpret the song is that it's about increasing self-desire in someone, though others do see it as a homosexual person finally accepting their sexuality. From what I could see about the reviews at the time, it was well received critically, even though it is a bit more familiar for her, but I don't think they meant that as an insult with the song. And they liked its disco and liberating theme and content. A few people did think it was kind of an inferior version of Vogue, which it self-references in the song, or quotes, or Into the Groove, but that was not the common opinion overall. The song was a hit as it charted in the top 10 in most of the countries it charted in. It did have a few top 20 positions as well, but it did chart at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 during the week of January 30th, 1993. Most of the support that the single got regarding the video was from VH1, as it had mediocre support from MTV, probably due to the last single and the sex book. By this point in time, the album was barely hanging into the top 30s of the Hot 200 charts, which isn't like how her other albums performed. So the film that she was working on simultaneously with the sex book and the album, called Body of Evidence, was released on January 15th, 1993, which is an erotic thriller. With a $30 million budget, it only made $38 million in the box office, and films generally need to make at least double or 2.5 times its budget to make a profit, since marketing is its own separate cost. It also was very panned when it came to the reviews, but that's nothing new regarding her movies, but it got nominated at the Razzies for several nominations, where she won for Worst Actress. By this point, the backlash against her was just growing more and more. Bad Girl was released as the third single of the album on February 2nd, 1993, but it was released a month and a half later in Australia and the United States. It is a somber pop song. I don't know why it's also labeled as R&B, but whatever. Anyways, it's a ballad about lacking in emotionally, being closed off and anguished due to a failed relationship, and coping with it by doing a bunch of bad, self-destructive things. The song peaked at number 36 during the week of March 27th, 1993 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and that was one of her lowest charting songs ever. A lot of people blamed the underperformance of the song on the backlash regarding the album, sex book, and the film really settling in by this point in time, and people found her bad girl image to be really trite and tired at this point in time. When it comes to the critics, it actually got a lot of positive reception as the melancholy vibe really hit people, and they did not see the song as her trying to provoke people, prove a point, or to agitate. And a lot of people did talk about the song's underperformance while reviewing the song, though a few others didn't like it for the reason that I just mentioned as to why some people liked it. It actually did get some support from MTV, unlike the last single, and of course VH1. The album Erotica was certified 2 times platinum by February 1993, and the album was at the top 50 of the Hot 200 charts, and it was at 70 when the song peaked, essentially meaning that the song got its high certification due to the first 2 singles of the album. But it is a late era single, so you could attribute the performance to that. But the fact that she did perform it on Saturday Night Live, as well as Bad Girl, made it seem like to me that they were thinking about pushing it in the US, but it just didn't really take off the way they anticipated. So I don't know the full story about that. But that's it for this single. The 5th single overall, but the 4th and final single in the US. Honestly, even in most of the world, this was the final single. Anyways, this single of the album is called Rain, which was released on August 5th, 1993. It is a pop song with some trip-hop and new age elements, which is about water, which is used as a metaphor for love, washing away her pain, past trauma, relationships, and being invigorated by this new thing. It was noted that the music video was intentionally toned down compared to her last ones, where she has a short haircut, and many people did see the song as one of the highlights of the album when it came out. People liked how her voice was like on the song, and how it was a relatively happy song compared to a lot of the other songs on the album, and the singles especially, in addition to how emotional and soothing the song was. When it came to its commercial performance, it was a top 20 hit in most of the areas that it charted in, especially internationally, where in the United States, it peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts during the week of September 11th, 1993, which is pretty much like a year after the era started. And I do think it would have performed better if it wasn't released a year afterward than if it was released earlier in the era. Anyways, the song did get a lot of support from MTV and VH1, and the song did help the album rise on the charts, where it was in the 120 position when it was peaking, while the album was hovering around in the 170s on the Billboard Hot 200 chart before the single was released. So Madonna did end up touring for the album, and it's called The Girlie Show, which would start on September 25th, 1993, where she toured North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania, which ended on December 19th, 1993. This is usually pretty late for an era going on to at the year point, and it was noted that she didn't really mess with America like that during the tour. Anyways, it was a very successful tour, and critics lauded the tour overall positively, so it was a good way to promote and end the era in the last quarter of the year 1993.
Everything. I mean, I haven't been in front of an audience that big in a really long time. And it was opening night, so I had opening night jitters. 80,000 people is a lot of people not to feel that you have a responsibility to not let down. And I know that the press was there from all over the world, and everybody was waiting, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. You give me fever.
Is it more difficult, do you think, than the Blonde Ambition tour?
Yeah, because I can't fake my way through the show. I can't, if I don't have a good night, I can't just go, well, I'll just sing the songs and not really think about them and everything will be fine. The last tour practically killed me. It's a shorter tour, and because I'm playing a lot of stadiums, I play less dates.
Bye Bye Baby was the sixth and final single of the album, where it only received a limited release, mainly in the countries Australia, Finland, Italy, New Zealand, and Switzerland, where it was a moderate hit in those regions. It was released on November 15th, 1993, labeled as a hip-hop and dance song, which samples LL Cool J's Jingling Baby. The song is about breaking up with an ain't crap lover. From what I saw of the critical reception, people did like the lyrics and composition, but didn't like how her vocals were handled in it and sounding disengaged, so it was mixed in that regard. And the fact that there was no music video for this kind of just showed that they were ready for the era to end. Now we are in the post-era aftermath section of the video, and with this section I generally like to talk about what happened soon after the album when it comes to the post-era aftermath, though there are some elements that I tend to discuss that covers the distant post-era aftermath, so well after the album rollout, but most of it's within the immediate aftermath. So, regarding the post-era aftermath, there was a segment of the general public who started seeing her as a flop, despite getting hits during the multi-platinum album era, and started getting hits with songs in between albums that are attached to like soundtracks and compilations and whatnot, because she wasn't dominating the music industry anymore like she was in the 80s, and many others were outselling her. She had that label on her, and people thought that she was never going to recover. Instead of being seen as the most powerful woman in the business, she was seen as a villain who was overexposed, vulgar, past her prime as well. Conservative America was always after her, but it was very legit this time around, and even some liberal outlets turned on her. She would continue gaining backlash after a David Letterman interview in 1994, where she came off as rude and brash, and people thinking that her provocation just went too far.
And the answer
lovely
is,
young woman.
yes.
No, but you have like
Yes,
a nose ring there. Now, what happens when
both
you
questions,
when you
yes.
take that out? Will you ever take that?
What happens when you take it out?
Yeah.
Both questions?
Oh, come on, come on. What am I speaking Chinese here? Now stop it.
Listen, all you do is talk about my sex life on your show, so now you don't want to talk about my sex life when I'm on your show.
No, what do you mean? Do you mean because we refer to you periodically? We make jokes?
Periodically?
Yeah.
You can't get through a show without talking about me or thinking about me.
But do you mind that? Is that a problem for you?
It's never a problem.
Yeah. All right, I tell you what let's do. Let's do a commercial. You want to do a commercial?
No.
Okay, we'll do a commercial
I don't
and
think we
then...
should ever cut to a commercial.
No,
Let's just keep talking and film every second of it.
Oh yeah, because if the rest of it is as fascinating as the first part of it, then we've got something there. That's money in the bank there.
Wait. Before we cut to a commercial, I just want to know, is that a rug?
You're talking about my hair. All right, what is that, a swim cap? What are you wearing? Come on, let's go. Here we go. Come on. No. I got a bad neck. I can't. There we go. Sit down. Just have a seat.
Don't make me act a fool, Dave. All right?
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the program. Madonna is here. Madonna and I are just sitting around smoking cigars, swapping recipes.
Yeah.
Also, counting crows and the world champion grocery bagger. Did you have jobs like that when you were a kid? You work in grocery stores, bagging groceries, any of that?
No.
Have you ever been in a grocery store?
You really, yeah.
Yeah, good.
You know, you've really changed since the last time I was on the show.
Well, we haven't seen you since like 6 years, 7 years or so.
You used to be really kind of, like, cool.
I know. There is no bigger dweeb than me.
Money's made you soft.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
In what sense?
Because you just kiss up to everybody in your show now. You too, man. You're always kissing up to like I see all these like movie stars coming here, and
Right.
you just all gaga.
I can.
You should give people a hard time.
Yeah, I can suspend that behavior tonight if you like.
I believe you have already.
Oh, I know. Now we're just kidding around. Explain to folks. We're just kidding around.
Don't treat me special, okay?
Sure.
I wouldn't know what to do
But
with
what
it.
specifically are you getting at? What is driving you nuts here? What's troubling you?
About you or life in general?
Well, or let's start with life in general.
No, let's just get back to you.
Okay, fine. First of all, you're not irritated at all. You're not irritated at all. I know
You're
this
not
is a little.
irritating me.
Okay, good.
Are you trying to?
No, I'm not trying to irritate you.
Actually, you do irritate me sometimes.
Well, you kind of irritate me too.
Really?
Clearly, there's a rebrand that needed to be done. She was aware that a rebrand needed to be done, but executing that rebrand is another story. Her next album, Bedtime Stories, was a calculated attempt to win back radio, award circuits, and the media, while taking her image, making it a bit more calmer. But there was a lot more going on with this era that I am going to cover next week. She had to change how she handled interviews, becoming more restrained but also emotionally open, or portraying that, toning down her appearance and focusing more on high fashion. But when you really look at the intricacies of the album and the era, there's not much of a sorry at all. But we'll get more into that next week. It was something that was going to take a while to take place when it comes to rebranding herself and reinventing herself in a way that seems genuine and that isn't pissing anyone off. It was something that needed to happen, but it was going to take a lot of work and effort. Another thing that went in Madonna's favor is that, luckily for her, she's never gone for too long and always has something in the work that will cause people to move on and focus on the next new thing. So just based on that, obviously, people were starting to move on from Erotica because she always had another project out in the works. So this next point that I'm bringing up is definitely one that extends long past the immediate post-era aftermath and is much more long-during, or it has a longer duration, if that makes sense. So there was a narrative that she was losing her grip on pop culture, and I think this was really the start of people kind of aging her in the business. By this point in time, she was 35 years old, which isn't old at all, but in the industry where they like to promote teenagers and very young adults, it makes someone who is 35 appear old in the industry, especially if they've been popular and relevant and dominating for a decade at this point. You start to hear a lot of people use her age as a dig at around this point in time in the mid-90s. And it really started here, and the fact that she was successful for so long, like I mentioned beforehand, she wasn't seen as the new, fresh, young thing anymore. And it's kind of like people were shaming her, oh, you're so old, why are you starting to act so sexy? Or she was starting to act in ways that they didn't feel like someone her age should be acting. And that really rose and rose with the future eras like Bedtime Stories and Ray of Light, especially with her becoming a mother at the end of the 90s. She still continued doing what she wanted to do, and people really started shaming her because she did not want to be a legacy artist. She wanted to be a current, relevant artist, so she still did a lot of the stuff that she was doing here, and it just really wasn't a good look for many people. So, pretty much, there was another element of it where a lot of the artists who were successful in the 80s were starting to fade out in the 90s. Like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of that transition into what would eventually become 90s music that showed up a few years after the 90s started. Madonna had to fight really hard to make sure that she was not a part of that fading group. But mainly the ageism started here and is still present as I record this video over 30 years later. This next section is what I like to call the What Happened section, and this part out of any of them really in these videos is solely based on my personal opinion. So one thing that I think happened is that I do think Madonna used provocation as a way to gain attention to her projects and to push the messages, concepts, and themes that she wanted out there for whatever projects that she did and whatever she wanted to discuss, essentially. It worked a lot for her in the 1980s, and it made her stand out in a positive way during that decade, despite having a lot of haters. But that tactic was not something that was going to be rewarded in the 90s, especially by someone who thrived in the 80s. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that a lot of people who were thriving in the 80s were falling off in the 90s, and there's almost like a 180 switch that was happening with what worked in the 80s not working in the 90s. It also did not help that Madonna insisted on releasing the album and the sex book at the same time. So it doubled the controversy, but it also caused the album to be ignored since most of the backlash came from the sex book and not the album in itself. Well, maybe the lead single and especially the music video, but the album overall wasn't what caused most of the controversy, though that was obviously going to be the main thing that she would be promoting for a year, not Body of Evidence or the sex book. It's Erotica that was going to be promoted for a year, and the controversy kind of caused a lot of people to move on and to ignore it.
I want to kiss you in Paris. Until anyone meets me, they think that I'm some solo flex machine, some sort of ice queen, weird nymphomaniac dominatrix that never goes to sleep or cries. I don't know why.
Madonna had a tough year. Last October, she released her book, Sex, a bestseller harshly criticized by the media. This was closely followed by Body of Evidence, which received a lukewarm response from audiences and even more vicious comments from the press. Her album, Erotica, was heralded by music critics as her most accomplished work yet. But with a chart high of #2, it wasn't her biggest hit, and the media again labeled it disappointing.
You know, you've been criticized. It seems to me...
Me criticized?
What a shocker. It seems like it's getting more brutal. I mean, they're particularly brutal in the last year or so. Have you noticed that? And
no.
Why do you think that is? I mean, is there a Madonna backlash?
I'm a strong female. I've been around for many years. Now, most celebrities usually have a lifespan of a certain amount of years. I think if you're a woman, you're allowed to be famous for about 7 years, and then you're supposed to either die of a drug overdose or get married and have several children, or just start doing infomercials, horrible infomercials on television. I'm not really sure. One of those things, and none of those things, I haven't really fit into any of those categories, and I just sort of keep going, and I think that it frightens people.
If ever you gave the public a chance to kind of knock you, it was the sex and the Body of Evidence and all that stuff. Did you think you kind of crossed that fine line at any stage around there?
Well, I knew that I was going to cross the line by doing it. I mean, I knew I was getting into a very shady area. I knew I was dealing with a lot of taboo subjects, and I knew that it was going to upset a lot of people, but I felt that it needed to be done, so I did it.
To what specifically, then?
To censorship, to sexual, oppression, to the kind of prejudice that, say, for instance, the gay community has to deal with. I think that minorities needed somebody who's popular that people looked up to step forward and say, this is okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be this way. It's okay to have sexual fantasies. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to be bisexual. It's okay to be all of these things, because when we are constantly told to be ashamed of our feelings, then everyone's living a lie, and this feeling manifests itself in very unhealthy ways, and I don't think that's good.
Because of the publicity and your perceived preoccupation with sex, most people, I think, and forgive me if I'm being offensive, but most people probably perceive you as being promiscuous.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel?
Well,
I mean, do you agree?
I know it's not true, so what...
But do you agree that you have maybe prompted people to feel that way?
No, I just think that it shows how ignorant people are and how people aren't really listening to what I have to say, because what I'm saying is that you should feel comfortable with your sexuality and that you shouldn't be ashamed of it. I'm not telling everybody to go out and, have orgies every night with people. I mean, that's ludicrous. I don't think people are really listening to what I have to say.
Do you feel a responsibility to your fans to kind of be a good person?
Well, I feel a responsibility to myself to be a good person. And hopefully that in turn will inspire people.
So the next point that I'm going to bring up is something that I already kind of mentioned, but since this is the What Happened video, I have to reiterate it again. So the music industry was going through a lot of changes sonically, production-wise, and in other areas during the 1992 to 1993 period. Heck, even in the 1991 year, which was right when she released her album, specifically 1982 and 1993. And one thing you'll notice within each decade is that it usually takes 2 to 3 years for the quote-unquote sound or quote-unquote sound of the decade to come into play. So 1990 and 1991 was still the leftover sound of the 80s, just like the 2000 and 2001 was the leftover sound of the 90s. 1980, 1981 are the leftover sounds from the 70s, and you kind of get my point. So pretty much when Madonna released the album, this was right when the official shift was happening. She somewhat latched onto New Jack Swing when it was dying with some of the songs on that album. House music was also starting to lose some popularity at around this point. Actually, a lot of popularity around this time. And while she still got some hits, it could be argued that she was behind when it came to the sounds of the time or the sounds of the future. And despite her having some hits, they were not cultural juggernauts like she had in essentially every single era before this era. None of them had the huge, massive longevity that some of the songs from her earlier eras did. And they weren't cultural songs, pretty much. Another thing that I think happened to Madonna is that she was just very overexposed. She released an album every 1 to 2 years. She released a few soundtracks in between that tight space, so the gaps between albums were always a lot less, and Madonna was always releasing a single no matter what was happening. So adding onto that and being polarizing, a lot of people were just naturally going to get sick of her. Also, she was always in some sort of movie every few years, so even outside of the music, she was visible due to promoting a movie too, so she was really just everywhere. That worked in the 80s, but people were starting to get tired of it by the 90s, and once you add all the other elements that I have already discussed, you get an audience who is very, very, very tired of someone. There's eventually going to be backlash that stuck from this, and I also think that a part of the backlash was that she was seen as the queen of pop, and she was no longer the underdog, so people definitely wanted to knock her down a peg and to take her off her pedestal a bit. I also think her owning a multimedia company made her a bit too powerful in some people's eyes, and giving her more freedom to execute whatever she wanted also added on to the overexposure too. Now we are in the final section of the video, which is what I would call how to fix the era. And this is all just my personal opinion on things that I think should have or should have been tweaked, and the most likely best case scenario for the album would have pretty much happened. So one thing that I would have done is not release the album and the sex book at the same time. I think that the sex book should have been pushed back a few months, so maybe like 4 months, I would say, just so the album could have stood on its own, where it really could have found its own foundation, so it could have been as successful as possible. And while the first 3 singles were released and the album was released, people were solely focusing on that. And then once the root of the album is planted and the rollout is very, very strong and is holding some legs, then the sex book could have been released. I said 4 months, maybe even 5 to 6 months, depending on the timeline. Another thing that I would do is link up with and promote some AIDS activism groups and lean more into vulnerability, so people wouldn't just think the album's all about sex and provocation and all of that. Now that I actually think about it, releasing it around the same time as Body of Evidence would have made more sense. So I think that was like February, March 1993, so release both at the same time while the album already had some legs would have been the best case scenario. When it comes to the actual album, I don't think Erotica was the best choice for it being the lead single, just because it got taken off the radio and the music video especially was taken out of the music channels because it was way too controversial and sexual, and many people said it's tacky after only being played once or twice, especially on MTV. It sold quickly and then it faded out, which really just isn't a good sign for a lead single. And it started the immense backlash before the album was even released. Something more accessible should have been released as the first single, and then people can grow into the griminess, which is why I think Deeper and Deeper should have been the first single instead of the second single. It was a hit that had longevity. It is very danceable, accessible, groovy, and sexual enough, but not isolating in it being too sexual, and being a nice mix of her older sound with the newer house sounds. And it had more longevity than Erotica, the single, did anyway, so I just think switching it as well as Deep and Deeper having a push of a lead single definitely would have done better, and I think it would have shown off the more vulnerable and freeing side of the album more. So yeah, that's what I would do. So regarding the second single, I definitely think it should have been a ballad just to do a 180 and have an accessible song to strengthen the album, to ease more people into it more, and for the winter too, because I'm keeping the album release date. So the lead single would have been released at the same time, and so would the second single. And the second single was meant to carry into the winter, and for the vulnerable side of the album to be shown more. With this in mind, I would move up Rain so it could be the second single. I still cannot believe that they waited a year to release this as a single and as the fourth single. And while it was a hit, it would have blown up a lot more if it was released when the album still had momentum, instead of releasing it after the album had long since died off like it did in real life. And it would have given it better legs as a second single. And I do think both of these songs would have been top 5 hits worldwide, and the backlash wasn't really a thing at this point. So yeah, that's definitely what I would have done. So after the 2 hit songs gave the album a lot of life, I would then release Erotica as the third single, but the video would have to be toned down a lot, or a decent amount at least, to get MTV play, which it really didn't get in real life due to it being way too graphic, and maybe do a censored version of the song that would make it easier to play on the radio so it could have more longevity. But you could argue that it was taken off the radio due to the music video and then the upcoming sex book, so maybe that's why. I also think maybe releasing the sex book around the time would have been more beneficial here, since the album in itself had the legs, and it was proven to have legs, and it was too late in the era to really kill the momentum of the album, maybe. And I think Body of Evidence would have been released around this time anyways. So you release the movie, you release the sex book, it's kind of over and done with, and then you can use the momentum for the album to kind of release it, get the sales up, and then move on from it quickly while the third single is doing what it's doing. And I do think a Martine Erotica would have performed roughly around what it did in real life, but it would just have longevity, making it a bigger hit in the long run. Okay, so regarding the Girlie show tour, I would move it up to the late spring, since in real life she started the tour a year after the album came out, and by that point, most people really weren't buying the album. She mentioned that the last tour was way too overwhelming, so I do get the shorter tour, but I definitely would have moved it up a bit just so the album sales probably would have done better. And yeah, I would have, when it comes to the final 2 singles, I would have the final US single be Waiting, because it's definitely more urban leaning and it's a bit funkier. it fit the timescape of 1993 very well, and it's also a good hint and indicator of what bedtime stories would have been like and ended up being like, so I think that was a good choice. And then for the international release, I would definitely keep it with Fever since it did do well enough there. Bye Bye Baby wouldn't be a single at all, and I'll just keep it as those 5. So I do think that if this was the rollout, the album could have gained 3 top 10 hits and another top 20 hit. So 3 to maybe 4 million in the US, but definitely around the 3.5 marker, and then sell 8 to 10 million albums overall. So it would have done much better than what happened in real life. The controversy or the backlash regarding the controversy would have been toned down a bit more, or at least a bit more spread out, so it wouldn't be completely overwhelming, and it would have set her up better for her next album. So that concludes my coverage for Erotica, and this is part 1 of 2 of Madonna's Simmering successes, or at least with this series. Erotica is always a very interesting album because she was pushing the boundaries, but she did it for a purpose. She was a veteran at this point in time, and there are many other newcomers in the game. So seeing her adapt to that, as well as adapt to the 90s in general, was very, very interesting. And this was seen as her first major underperformance at the time, and it meant that her Imperial era wasn't perfect. She actually had to work and fight to remain relevant and to reinvent herself, even in ways that she really didn't want to. And I do like how this lays the footprint or the blueprint for bedtime stories, where I see that album as a continuation of Erotica, but obviously with the way it was promoted, you wouldn't think that. And we will get into next week whether that era rectified a lot of the wrongs that happened with Erotica, or if it was all for naught, or if there are other issues with the bedtime stories era that it presented that is worth talking about on its own. So anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with more content soon. Take care!